Good afternoon, Pima Community College, and Happy New Year if I haven't been able to see you yet. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon, and thank you for your dedication to our students, everything you do as part of our Pima Community College family. Your work every day, your commitment does not go unnoticed, and I am so grateful to be part of a great college, great people, and just a great community. So back in August at All College Day, we talked about our aspirations for the academic year and the work that we have ahead. And now that we're here in January, well into that year, I wanted to take some time to reconnect with the whole college, just to take stock of where we are, assess our progress, identify areas of improvement, and ensure we're moving forward together. And so how do we do that? You know, rather than convene a large assembly or an elaborately produced video, I just wanted to keep this very simple. So I'm glad to invite you into my office this afternoon just to share a few slides and have a direct conversation about our work together. And so this is a first for me, this is a first for us, and we'll see how it goes. As you know, this year's theme is Adapt and Advance Together for Students. And these aren't just words on a slide or a title, right? They really reflect our shared commitment to adapt on what's working here at PCC and really improve what needs to change and work together to make a meaningful difference for our students. So today's conversation is about certainly closing the loop, you know, about planning and action. We've looked at those things, we think about those things, we set our goals, and now we focus on execution, how our strategy really becomes progress and how that progress positions us for 2026 and beyond. And I think this is also about communication, right? Making sure that we're all aligned together, pulling in the same direction, and we're clear about, you know, where we've been, where we are now, and where we are headed into the future. Before we get into the specifics of all our goals and work this year, I did want to start with something I learned a long time ago. Many of you may be familiar with Simon Sinek and his work, and start with why it's a little dated now, but I think it's a great way to start. You know, why do we do what we do? And if we think about our mission statement, right, empowering every learner every day for every goal, it's all about empowerment. Empowerment for individuals, empowerment certainly for families, empowerment for the community. And I just want to say this to you all. Never underestimate the greatness of your work here at Pima Community College. What we do at a community college really has ripple effects that touches so many individuals, families, our entire community, and our economy. It is amazing, transformational work, and we are proud to be a part of that. And think about what that really means, right? This is about parents who can finally provide stability for their kids. For me, right, it's about veterans who find a new purpose and a path forward as they go to school. It's, of course, recent high school graduates who become the first in their family to earn a college credential, and more. Right? It's people in the workforce, mid-career professionals who reinvent themselves, upskill for better opportunities. So I know every day we see lives transform, not just economically, certainly that, but also in their mindset, confidence, and hope and possibilities. And those individual transformations really add up, right? The data shows this. Post-secondary education leads to higher earnings, better health outcomes, stronger employment prospects, and greater civic participation. You know, people with college credentials are 5 times less likely to be incarcerated, they're healthier, they volunteer more, they vote more. Their children are more likely to pursue education too, which breaks cycles and of course builds new ones, positive impact for our community. And so for our community, this matters enormously. And so when you think about companies like Caterpillar or Raytheon, and they decide where to expand, they look for talent. And our ability to develop that talent makes Tucson attractive to high-quality employers And as you can see here, PCC generates 1.1 billion annual economic impact for this region, so a huge impact. We're not just educating individuals, right? We're building a stronger, safer, more prosperous Pima County. And this is why, right, when I say and I believe that every decision we're making at the college really has to prioritize student success. And so thinking about what that means, defining student success, because it's so important to our community and to those individuals, and measuring that impact is just so important. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about success. You know, how do we define it? How do we measure that? How do we know if we're making real and meaningful progress? For me, developing a college-wide scorecard last year was a huge priority. We needed a clear tool, a way to track really the key performance indicators that help us, right, that tell us whether we're succeeding in our mission. So the scorecard measures at a high level all the things that we should be doing to have that impact. So enrollment at the college. How do students progress through their programs at the college? How are students completing their credentials at the college? What about transfer to four-year institutions? Lots of students come to us to transfer. How well are we doing there? And then what happens to students after they finish? Do our transfer students earn their bachelor's degrees? How long does it take? What percentage of our graduates are employed? And finally, but crucially, how are we sustaining ourselves financially as an organization, right? We want to maintain that impact. How do we sustain that effort? And so the scorecard, you know, isn't something that's a secret and kind of locked away and we just bring out, right? It's available literally. I think it's 2 clicks on the website. You can get to the scorecard. You can simply just go to the PCC homepage and type in scorecard in the search bar. And so this is a very transparent, accessible to anyone, and it's how we understand that idea of student success at the highest level. And then, so if we think about why is success important, and then what is success, and we've broken those down into metrics, how do we move them? How do we move the needle? How do we expand that impact? And this is where our chancellors and cabinet goals come in, right? These aren't just aspirational statements. They're really grounded in actionable data and the real context of impacting our community. It helps us recognize the urgent challenges we face and charts a path forward. So through the scorecard and then the goals, this is how we stay focused. This is how we can hold ourselves accountable to making that difference. And this is how we ensure that everything that we're doing is connected to that idea of student success. So before I jump into the updates on some of our goals around enrollment and persistence and things like that, some of the progress that we're seeing, I do want to spend some time on really a crucial goal from last year, right? That's ongoing, and that's improving communication. Communication, the need for communication was so important. Last year, a group of stakeholders came together, faculty, staff, some administrators, and they made formal recommendations, as you can see here on the screen. It's Chancellor's Goal 3. And it was how do we improve communication across 4 focus areas? Improving communication with students, with faculty, with staff, of course, our community. And look, you know, at Pima, we are a huge, multifaceted organization. So effective communication, is tough. It's difficult, right? It's lots of people in lots of different areas. But it really is so crucial, right? It supports our direction, builds trust, helps us build relationships, and directly impacts student success. We have a long way to go, right? It's far from being perfect. It will never be done. But I do think we've made some real improvements in communication that I think are worth noting this afternoon. So first, you know, when I arrived at Pima, we didn't have a way of really scaled text messaging students. So we've gone digital first in terms of reaching students. Very often you'd hear, well, we emailed our students, and we knew that students weren't responding to those emails. So reaching students, reflecting how students actually engage with us today. I know in our own lives, right, we're constantly getting nudged, doctor's appointments, whatever, through text messages. So we've expanded text messaging so students get timely information in the way they're most likely to see it. Simple things, right? Updating our listservs for all of our employee groups. We've also created a new template and protocols for PIMA alls, right? So they all have a similar look. Hopefully you're not getting drowned by PIMA alls, but that's been, I think, a marked improvement. Again, simple things. You know, I meet with my cabinet to discuss a variety of issues at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. And so now we've made those cabinet notes available for people to see. You know, what is the cabinet talking about? So those are all available to you as well. You know, transparency in what leadership is discussing and deciding. Really important, we've upgraded our emergency notification system. So you should be getting time, if you're part of the system, you should be getting those notifications and then closing the loop on emergencies as they happen. We get an explanation on kind of what has happened at the campus following those notifications. Listening and learning sessions, that was a big part of my effort last year. Those have continued this year. We had some in the fall. We're going to have more here in the spring, and so I know we're setting up dates for those, and that will continue to make sure that I'm hearing you, that I'm talking with people at the different campuses. You know, I don't think you can talk about improvements in communication without thinking about shared governance, right? And shared governance remains a priority for us. One upgrade in this area has been the addition of the College Leadership Council. So what was once the ELT, what was known as the Executive Leadership Team, we've now added representatives from Staff Council and Faculty Senate, and this helps inform the decision-making process from the very start. This really ensures that faculty and staff voices are heard on that part of decision-making. And I know right now, I'm really excited about, we have college leaders, we have staff and faculty who are using a shared governance process to help us better define and practice what shared governance actually means, what it looks like. I know there is a 15-member committee. It has full-time faculty, adjunct faculty, exempt staff, non-exempt staff, of course, some administrators. Their first meeting is February 3rd, and the goal is delivering recommendations to the board on shared governance by May. And so that's great progress. Also, and how are we training supervisors? How are we training leaders at the college? So Human Resources is also launching the first part of a new supervisor foundations training with the rollout of college-directed training. We have refresher modules, I know, in for February, and more modules will be added later this spring, and a full program implemented by the fall, right? So, of course, supervisors are critical communicators, and we need to equip them. We need to equip them well. So all of these actions we're taking to improve communications, like this address today, right? An opportunity to talk to the college as a whole. We're aware they have not been fulfilled, right? We've got lots of recommendations, things like, you know, a comprehensive calendar of events for what's happening at the college. That takes time, right? That's a big thing, but we're going to still do it. We're still working at it. And I hope you'll continue to see some improvements in communication and know that that is a priority. Now, let's talk about enrollment. So enrollment has been a priority goal of the college since I've arrived. I know sometimes when we talk about enrollment, it can just feel like a number. But you know, going back to the why, right? Enrollment is so much more than that, right? It represents access, our ability to empower more of those people in our community through post-secondary education. So for community college, this is fundamental to student success. We can't help students succeed if they're not here with us at the college. So engaging our community in this opportunity, removing barriers and opening doors, that's where student success begins. So every enrollment is a life we have the chance to transform, right? That's an individual life, a family we can impact, a contribution to our community's future. So yes, enrollment is hugely important. It matters. It's how we fulfill our mission. It's a huge part of student success. So it's a priority goal, and one of the things we've done around enrollment is what we call the Tactical Enrollment Strike Team. And this has been going on for about a year, and I am part of the test group. It includes student experience, it includes accounts payable, it includes recruitment, it includes academic affairs, academic operations, right? It's a wide group of people at the college who meet every Friday, so it's a weekly cadence around enrollment. People just thinking about how we can get better at enrollment at 8 a.m. on Fridays. So, I don't know if it's an honor, but they're doing great work. And so some of the things that have come out of TEST, I was reflecting back, is a lot of targeted outreach to students. So students who have not signed up for financial aid, who are unprotected, who will get dropped because they haven't completed their financial aid or their payment plan, we've done a lot of targeted outreach to minimize those students. Students who are not doing as well at the college, at-risk students, the TEST team has really looked at reaching out to those students. Then we have students who just have left the college, stopped or stalled out, and again, targeted outreach campaigns to these students. PMIA online students, huge area of growth for the college. It's great, a vast majority of the seats that we have are in online classes, which provides great flexibility. But we're seeing trouble, right, with their success. And so really working with PMIA Online to mitigate that, right, to help build enrollment in those areas. And then just little simple things like you've noticed the letter that you'll get from me promoting registration. That comes out of that test area. Marketing campaigns, text campaigns. Right now we're working on alternative payment plans for students to allow them to continue their journey. So a lot of great work from that team that's kind of focused every week on, hey, what are we doing to keep our students, to bring more students into the college? Also around enrollment, we've done a lot of infrastructure work around high school engagement. A huge fact for us here in Pima County is that less than half, right? Less than half of the graduating seniors go to any post-secondary education, go to any college. So I always think about that. There are people who are graduating from our high schools, the majority, who aren't going anywhere. So we've created infrastructure. We now have recruiters assigned to each of our school districts, each of our high schools, and really meeting with our superintendents and really trying to build out that level of engagement with our high school. We've also revised our webpage and our application process. So you look on the webpage, we have lots of students that come in from different areas, right? There are dual enrollment students, there are students with some college experience, there are students brand new, first time in college, there are people coming back from work. And so we've reorganized the website so that it will serve any of those students. It'll be much easier to see, hey, I'm looking for something that's non-credit, I'm looking for something that's credit. It's all available on our revised areas of interest webpage. And the application, we don't want an application that takes a really long time to fill out and it's hard to complete. If people are interested in PIMA, we need to make that easier for them. So we've launched a new application this spring. We're testing it out, and we're hopefully we'll see some improvement. And these are all part of what we call a no wrong door effort. More and more, yes, we get that traditional high school path, and we want to make sure that's strong. Like I said, less than half from high school are coming over to us, so we need to build that out. But we're getting a lot of people unemployed, people upskilling, people at different levels, and are people who need a high school equivalency, right? And so when they come into the college, are they getting the same level of service? Do they know all of the great things that we have, the opportunities, credit for prior learning opportunities that will empower them, that will give them that opportunity in education? With all of these efforts, we've done well, right? We've had 11 consecutive semesters of growth in enrollment, and particularly in some programs, right, we see a really high demand continuing to grow. Cybersecurity, health sciences, and more. There's other areas of significant growth. This is what it looks like on the scorecard. So if you start here in this middle column, this is where we were last year, 17,154 students. These are actual bodies. We set a target at 17,583, right? We're hoping for a modest increase at 2.5%. And this is where we were as a couple of days ago, 17,705. And I think even this morning it's higher than that. Now, it's important nationally, we're seeing an increase in community college enrollment. It's around 2.5%, 3%. I think this morning we were around 4%, so we're even exceeding the national trends, which is good news for us, right? We're attracting people into the college. Okay. Also part of enrollment, right, is thinking about student persistence and retention, right? And so that's the idea of students continuing. They get into our doors. How well do they stick with us? What can we do? It's really, persistence is such a critical measure of the student experience at a college, right? We reach people, we bring them into PIMA, and then how do we support them so they can actually realize that opportunity? And that's the question, right, that has to really drive our operations, our processes. It's not enough, right, just to get them in the door. That's great. But we've got to create systems. We've got to think about how can we get them to stay at scale, progress, and finish, right? So looking at persistence, measuring persistence tells us whether we're really delivering on that promise, right, that potential to our students. So if you look at the reality, and these percentages kind of hold true over time, you know, in the fall we look at a cohort of students their first time at the college here at PIMA. Right? We call that the VFA, the Voluntary Framework of Accountability Cohort. If we start with 10 students, by the time we get to spring, and that's what we call persistence, going from fall to spring, we have about 6 left, maybe 6.5, depending on the year. As we get to the next fall, though, and that's what we mean by retention, we get to that next August, we're down to 4.5 students. 10 students come into our doors, they want something. By the time August comes, only 4 are remaining. And then if you go 4 years out, right, so you go through that first year, then 3 years later, 2.5 of those students have finished their degree. So this is an area that we're measuring where we have some work to do, right? This is an opportunity for us. And so when we think about accelerating and models and giving students more credits, this is generating that conversation. This is what it looks like on the scorecard. So we'll start with persistence. This is fall to spring, right? So if you see the fall 25, last year around, like I said, 6.5, 65% of those students returned that started with us in August. We set a target for a modest increase. Could we get it to 66.8? And there's still room to enroll, but this is where we were as of this week, right? Right at that stubbornly 6.5%. Now you can see if you go down to, well, what about the students who are full-time, right? They persist, they go from fall to spring at a much higher rate, right? 80% of those students. And so that's that idea, can we get more full-time students would be better in terms of improving that persistence rate. Retention is August to August, so fall 24 to fall 25. Again, it's about 4.5 people, 45% make it back. Our target was 47, and we're better than last year, but we're right around 46%. So this is something for us to work on, right? How do we get better at keeping those students here at PIMA? So what are some of the things that we're doing, right? What are some of the things that we're working on to improve here? One is identifying that cohort that I'm talking about. We know, we've identified, these are the students coming in. We know there's going to be difficulty, so can we target outreach and interventions and provide supports for that cohort specifically to get them to stay? There's no magic wand here, but one of the really exciting opportunities are around student success courses, right? Our STU courses. The data here is compelling. If students take these classes, we see them persist and retain and complete at much higher rates. And so one of the goals this year is to require STU courses. We're planning for it for next year to improve that student success. First year experience, right? That first year you're at Pima, how are we working on those engagements for that VFA cohort, right? Improving that first year experience, improving that persistence and retention rate. Simple things, right? Spaces, the spaces where our students are on a campus. It's interesting, while we have a lot of fully online students, a lot of them spend time on our campuses. So what do our engagement spaces look like across the campus? And we're doing some improvements. If you've been out to East, they've done some great things, which is fun things for students, gets them to stay, right, at the college. And proactive advising, right? This isn't advising waiting for students. Our advisors are out there reaching out to students, looking at that VFA cohort, engaging them, and getting them to stay. And finally, pathways, right? No wasted efforts. No one taking extra classes, wasting their financial aid. Really clearly defined career pathways will help in this area. So you have enrollment, bringing them into the college. How well are they persisting and retaining? And then the ultimate metric is always how many students finish. You know, our work at the colleges is we offer associate degrees. We'll be offering a bachelor's degree. We offer lots of amazing certificates. But we can see here, after students come in 4 years later, that cohort, that VFA main cohort started in the fall of 2020. 4 years later, 21% have earned either a certificate or a degree, right? Not all of these folks were going for a 2-year degree, but even the people earning certificates, it's only at that rate. People that came in the 21 did a little better, so it's 2.5 people earning that credential. And so that is what we're thinking about in terms of completion at the college. This is kind of interesting when we think about those things working together is, well, how many credits are students earning, right? So when students come into the college, if you just do the average size of a cohort, that VFA cohort, it's 4,651 students. In the fall, on average, right, our students are part-time, they earn 8 credits. And then it gets worse from there in terms of earning credits. If they come back in the spring, we know only about 60-something% get back to us in the spring, they'll earn 6 credits. And if we're lucky, a credit in the summer, right? And so that's just 16 credits. And so that's a long time to earn a 60 credit plus or whatever the degree is. And again, you saw, we know less than half make it back for August that next year. And so when we think about, well, how can we give people opportunities for more credits, things like accelerating 8 weeks is where that comes into that conversation. Can you take 2 8-week classes, 6 credits, and then 2 more 8-week classes? Now you're at 12 credits in that fall, right? Giving students that opportunity to earn more credits and then improving that graduation rate is the idea behind that. And then along with the things we've talked about, pathways with fidelity. We've got to make sure as our online area continues to grow that there's course success. And we've done great things with our student success coaches. I know we don't have enough of them, but they do great work, and how do we scale that impact, right? So just some of the interventions that we're working through to move the needle in terms of completion. So enrollment, persistence, retention, completion, it's blocking and tackling, right? That's fundamentals for the community college, and we certainly want to get better. Because if we do get better in those areas, it's a huge impact on individuals, families, and communities. And so those are some of the basics, but what else is going on now? The good news is we're growing, right? Where people are coming to the college, we've got growth in a lot of our programs. So as our programs evolve, we do need more specialized spaces that really can serve our students. And we're really excited, another one of the Chancellor's goals this year, about a community investment plan through a general obligation bond, right? Going to our community and saying we need some support and some capital projects. And as you can see here on the slide, right, this is about how our campuses can better serve our students. So we're talking about a first responders center of excellence. We've got great programs in EMT, paramedic, again, areas of growth, fire science, some law enforcement, but they're in all over the place at the college, in some and not so great facilities. And so a center of excellence in public safety and for first responders out at the East Campus is something that we're really excited about. Great jobs for students and a great opportunity for our community. We're in a community that celebrates the arts. So a center, we have a great arts program, a center of excellence in the arts, right, that elevates creative programs, a lot going on in the digital space, a lot going on in entrepreneurship in the arts, great cultural impact. So a center of excellence in the arts, centers of excellence in education, in STEM, really lining up to the University of Arizona's efforts in terms of research. In education, right, we're launching our bachelor's program, and that would be aligned there. And then just in general, as we look around our campuses, really modernizing student spaces across our campuses. And as you know, emergency preparedness and safety is something I think about a lot. So right now, our PCC Police Department, they're way out by the airport. We'd love to give them a facility at our downtown campus where they'd be close, be at our downtown campus, closer to all of our campuses, to better serve and protect our community. And so it's very early, right? We're going to our governing board to talk about that general obligation bond. And the First Responder Center of Excellence may not end up looking like this, right? I do want to get that out. But this is some of the ideas that we're seeing, that we're playing with, that I did want to share with you this afternoon. And so this would be out at the East Campus. This would be the First Responders Center of Excellence, what it could look like. And then the arts, right? We're talking about things like digital support, a sound stage could be helpful with the Center of Arts. Again, may not look like this exactly, but these are some of the early renderings as we consider these projects for centers of excellence. And then just modernize student spaces, right? As students are, it's just like our lives, right? We don't do online banking and then old-fashioned banking. We just bank, we use our apps, and then we go to the bank if we need to. The same with the student experience. So are we creating spaces that support online learners, computers, lots of places for them to be engaged on the campus, multi-purpose space that supports 21st century learners. With Drachman Street right on our downtown campus, we were committed to preserving some of the historical stuff, the signs on that street. This is what a police department and some of the student services areas could look like at the downtown campus, which is growing by leaps and bounds, right? So these are some of the things we're excited about. We're working with the board, and if we go and we'll ask if it goes forward, it would be this November, we'd be asking for that general obligation bond. And that all comes down to resources, right? So programs are growing. We have work to do in retention and completion, and we've got some exciting things lined up. As I said earlier, we're a big college. If you think about it, we serve more than 40,000 students a year in Pima County. We have 5 campuses. We're in high schools, 1,500 employees. So to sustain, right, and on top of that, you can see enrollment continues to grow, right? There's growing demand. And the data, this is last year's budget, right? The expenses from the college were $264 million, and we brought in $254 million. And you don't have to be a financial expert to see there are some challenges there, right, in terms of, especially as you think about long-term sustainability. So what are we doing about it? Well, number one, it's one of my priority goals, cost containment, right? One of the things we're working on this year is to realize $4 million in reoccurring expense at the college as a start. Legislative focus. We know that Pima, nor Maricopa have received state funding for a long time, but we are making a hard effort to engage the governor, our legislative delegation, on restoring some level of state funding to Pima Community College. If you think about the impact that we have, of course locally, but even across the state, the number of learners that we're serving, we are due, it's responsible for the state to fund us at some level. So we are continuing that effort. Space optimization. So while we have some growth in some areas, we need to consolidate. So we have moved our adult education program that were at El Rio and El Pueblo centers. We have moved them onto our campuses. And in the two buildings that are here on Broadway, where I'm sitting now, we should be out of the A and B building, which is right on Broadway, and we're trying to get out of here and moving these offices to our campuses, right? Getting out of space that we don't really need and try to maximizing and growing space that we do need. You know, the Pima Foundation does just some remarkable work, amazing work, and that we're going to continue to need their support going forward in terms of fundraising and the foundation. Again, making a huge difference for our students. And we have to talk about revenue, right? Yes, we can contain costs and try to be efficient, but revenue is important. And revenue for Pima Community College is tuition, and it's also property taxes. So last year, really proud, we did not have to raise tuition, but we can't do that every year, right? Healthcare is more expensive. Supplies are more expensive. So we may need to slightly increase tuition this year in terms of a revenue strategy. Of course, we'll be talking with our board about that. And the same with property taxes. Last year, again, proud, we did not raise property taxes, but again, we can't do that every year. And again, talking with our board about what revenue, right? Pima's working hard. You all deserve a raise, and if we want to do those things, continue to grow, we are going to have those revenue conversations with the board going forward. So that's all a part of that work. So here's what it looks like on the scorecard. So you can see the target is $4 million in savings. And then here you can see these are where the reductions. And I'm proud to say in the personnel, the $1.4 million that we are saving, these are vacant positions that we have closed. Not always easy, but better than people being in those positions, of course. Operations, we've made some savings, and you can see where we are right now. We've saved right now around $2.3 million in savings, so we're more than halfway home on that particular goal, but it's something we'll continue to work on going forward. So when we think about what does Pima Community College look like 2030 and beyond, you know, number one, going back to those outcomes. I said earlier we have a $1.1 billion impact and great impact on all those individuals. What does that look like if our graduation's at 40%, 50%? You know, think of the impact that we could be having if we were kind of improving our student success outcomes, right? Job placement would be improved. All of those things would be improved simply by improving those outcomes. Really excited about work-based learning, internships, externships, apprenticeships. We know that students, no matter what they're studying, if they're transferring, going into a workforce program, exposing them to work-based learning really is a benefit. Think about those early jobs in your own experience and how much you learn about people and working with the public. All of those skills, we'd love to incorporate that into the learning experience at scale at Pima Community College. Digital fluency. You know, a lot of our students are digital natives. That doesn't mean that they're equipped to fully succeed in a professional or academic environment. So really defining, you know, what should students from Pima Community College leave with? How do we think about digital fluency? We know employers are looking for that skill set. They need that. And so how are we defining that at PCC and then scaling it for our students? We think a lot about childcare for our students. We have a great program at Desert Vista, but I'd love to find ways to expand high quality childcare for our students, of course. What about our faculty and staff? Bachelor's degrees. We have one. I think we could have a lot more. Again, a great opportunity for access to a high quality degree. We plan to add more bachelor's degrees into the pipeline, into the offerings for Pima Community College. The good news as we think about the future, and these are just some of the priorities that are emerging, is we are in the midst of a strategic planning process. So when you get, you know, those planning days, those future conferences that come out of Dr. Richmond's office, the STAR group, this is the time to get engaged in that planning for the future at Pima Community College. You know, ultimately, at the end, right, we can have all these strategies, and there's that old cliche, right? Culture will eat strategy for breakfast, right, all day long. Culture is really what's important. And so how do we think about that idea of a culture of excellence, to be excellent in enrollment, excellent in the student experience and persistence retention, excellent in graduation rates, job placement, transfer, you know, financial sustainabilities. So something to think about in terms of the vision for Pima Community College. Thank you for tuning in this afternoon, for joining me here. I hope I've connected on kind of where we are on some of the key goals, some of the outcomes, where we hope to head for the future. And if this works out, it's a good environment. I'll try to do more of these. It's always a great opportunity to talk to the college as a whole. Right? I really only get to do that at All College Day, and this is an opportunity for me to do that. Thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. I get out of bed every day, and I'm so excited to be here, to be part of the great work that you all are doing. Have a wonderful weekend and a great semester. Thank you.